You mentioned seasonal and local food, which is easy for us to say in San Francisco and California. It's not so easy in the middle of the country, and some of this reeks of elitisms. Like it's easy for us on the left or right coast to talk about these things. What about people who can't get seasonal food or have a single working parent? Some of this stuff is harder for some people than it is.
Right.
No,
that's true, and I think in our grandparents' time, people used to grow their own food. A lot of people, victory gardens, we have a little sidebar about that in the book. People used to grow their own food in the backyard, and then you knew what was on it and what it was and where it came from. But it is a challenge, and I think that this concept of food deserts too. That's not something that I knew about before. I mean, we've got access to healthy, fresh food is a big problem in this country, and it's something we have to work on.
Food was barely mentioned in An Inconvenient Truth, the award-winning, Academy Award-winning film that you produced. And it seems that food seems to be much more on the forefront of consciousness these days. I mean, some places have always been full of foodies like San Francisco.
Right,
but in terms of the environmental awareness and movement, food seems to be rising up in terms of an issue. So is that something you've seen? I mean, why wasn't food part of the movie? Was it just not part of?
Well, there was so much to talk about, something had to give because, you have to edit these things and people have to, food, so.
But now people talk about cutting your meat consumption is probably the biggest thing you can do to reduce your carbon footprint.
Well, we have to. Honestly, just if you don't care about the environment, you just care about your health, we have to start eating less meat. We have to. And it's completely unsustainable. So we're eating too much of it. So we have to do that. Food miles, how far this food's traveling. The fact that everything's available all year long. Like that is crazy. I mean, how exciting is it when you get to taste the first strawberry in June, and how delicious does that taste? I mean, we're undermining that experience by having this available all year long. I mean, we really don't understand what fresh tastes like anymore because we're not really eating fresh food. So that's a big challenge. But I think the reason why food is becoming more popular, and I think the issues of food, every single thing that we all care about crosses the dinner plate. I mean, this is the perfect place where all these issues come together. And the kitchen is the greenest room in your house to start, practicing and teaching these values. And, food waste is another issue. What we're throwing away is insane. How about how much plastic, we're using in the kitchen? And the fact that we're all drinking from plastic water bottles and not from glass and not from the tap. And in your kitchen, kids are grabbing like water bottles. And, there's a lot of issues relating, not just the fact that every piece of plastic that ever existed, that was ever made. Think of every piece of saran wrap that ever went on a bowl still exists, right? So we need to, a lot of this is about we need to go backwards in order to go forward, right? We need to go back to some simpler times, and we need to, in order to move ahead, because it is unsustainable the way we're living. It really is.
So sustainability, it sounds great to buy organic, but a lot of organic costs more, again, and some people aren't willing to.
Yeah, but so then you pick the things that are the most important, and there's a whole list, and we have a list in the book of okay, if you can only afford, 5 organic vegetables or fruits, buy these. But I would also argue that if people ate less meat, they can use that extra money to buy a better quality of meat, right? So if you cook at home, that's a lot cheaper than buying takeout and eating in restaurants all the time. So I think there's ways to, shuffle things a little bit to get the benefits from it.
Let's talk about meat a little bit. You mentioned Jonathan Foyer at the end of your book, who wrote a book, Eating Animals, which, do you eat a lot of meat at your dinner table? Are you vegetarian? Are your kids vegetarian?
Okay, I am a meat reducer, okay? And I honestly, I really hate labels because I think they put this pressure on you, and it's, you don't have to put a label on yourself. You just have to, find healthier ways to live. And so I consider myself a meat reducer. And my kids eat, I mean, we have a chapter about Meatless Monday, but in my house, it's basically Meatless Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I do eat meat, but I eat it, not that much. And when I have it, I enjoy it.
Less than you used to?
85% less than I used to. And I try to buy, organic meat and grass-fed meat when I can. But it's a very simple way to, to reduce your carbon footprint and help your health too, is eat less of it.
Now, in listening to your talk, if I didn't know that you were from Hollywood and a producer, I might think that some of the things that you're talking about would be someone from the middle of the country, perhaps on the religious right or right, talking about family values. Have you encountered any people who are very different than you politically in this book journey and found that you might have some things in common around food and family where you don't agree on politics?
You know, that's a very, very interesting question. And yes, I have, just recently. I was a guest on The View last week, and they have, you know, The View has all those great women with very different opinions, and Elizabeth is somebody who I don't agree politically with most often, and she was incredibly excited about this book, and after the segment, we had all the food out there, and they, you know, it was so funny too, because Whoopi Goldberg, they said, you know, she's not going to eat anything, and she won't eat a vegetable, and she's not going to eat anything. Literally, go watch the segment. From the second the segment started, she could not stop eating. I mean, she didn't ask me one question. She was eating the entire time. So I took that as a huge compliment. But Elizabeth was really excited about all this, and as soon as the segment was over and we walked off, we stood in a corner and talked for 20 minutes about food and all the issues relating to food. So yes, that's an answer. This is not a political issue. This is, you know, this is about our families, this is about our health, and then it's about our future too.